Hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and sorry for starting late. If my eyes still look red, it is because, as I mentioned in the chat, I poked myself in the eye like 2 seconds before I was supposed to get started. I just wanted, because my eyes have been sensitive the entire day, and I was like trying to lessen the sensitivity and just made it worse. So that's great, we love when that happens. We'll see how it holds up throughout the stream. But I didn't just want to not stream because I had been stupid and poked myself in the eye. Anyway. It does feel that way sometimes. I often wonder if I am just that friend that always ends up being the soap opera of the other friends, or like of the friend group. But it's not that bad though. It's just annoying. But if I look a little bit like I'm having sinus issues, it's all because of the eye. Anyway, we're gonna deal. One thing I did unfortunately want to mention is it feels very awkward to say this, but I've decided to up the, not even up, usually with my live streams I make the choice not to have ads playing during the live, but because I recently discovered that I am not bringing in enough with the live streams to cover the costs of the books, I've decided to try and put ads in the live stream, because then I can at least continue with this. If I can't at least cover the cost of the books, then I can't keep doing the live streams, which sucks because I really love doing these live streams. And it's been a hobby where I've been telling myself, you know, it's fine, I don't mind not really making money with the lives as long as I can still just cover the cost of the book. And that hasn't really been working out recently, so we're gonna do this and hope that that helps me at least cover the cost of the books. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, but it is necessary because I really don't want to stop the live streams. Okay, so yeah, with that unpleasantness out of the way, hi, I'm Janae. I do live streams and we usually read for 3 hours. We'll see if my eye holds up for that long. Hi! And I have tea here with me, so I'm gonna be sipping that as we go along just to make sure that my voice holds up. And I usually on or around the end of each hour I take about a 10-minute break just to get some new tea, stretch my legs, and then we jump back into the next hour or so of reading. So I hope you guys will stick around and enjoy. Hope my eyes are okay. Thank you very much. I hope so as well. And yeah, I think that is more or less it. One thing I wanted to mention, just theory-wise, so I am at a point with my rereading of ErHa where I just started with volume 4, the yellow cover volume, and there was this moment that I don't think I ever put together when I was reading it the first time, and now in hindsight it's like it should have been so obvious to me, where Moran is being seen off by everyone and Shimei gives him, or attempts to give him a firestone or something like that that's supposed to help with his cultivation, but they're like, oh, because of the core of his cultivation it might lead to a chi deviation. And then we promptly get not only the knowledge that he got it for Moran at the very place where Moran lost his memories, but also he is confirmed to have the water element. So that, along with everything that recently happened in what we just read in this volume, leaves me feeling so conflicted about where Shimei stands in all this. And maybe it won't matter after this live stream because we are about to be introduced to some kind of big bad. Part of me thinks it might be alternate timeline Moran. One thing that has been bothering me a lot, and I wonder how it's going to come into play, is the fact that we were told Moran was brought back via rebirth, and yet then we saw rebirth be performed on Shizun, and it's played out completely differently to how Moran was brought back. And then we saw what we thought was another version of rebirth that obviously it turned out not to be the case. But all of this is making me wonder if the thing that gave Moran a second chance really was rebirth, or if it's another forbidden technique that we have yet to learn about and that Moran himself doesn't even know about. So, I don't know, just a lot of thoughts. And fun fact, while I was trying to, I was talking to Kekter and we were discussing ErHa, and I could not remember what Moran and Chuaning's ship name was, and I thought it was Moaning, because that just seems like the kind of ship name that Moran would find himself a part of, but obviously that is not the case. Anyway, okay, we are on to page 243, chapter 233. This venerable one can change the title if he like, if he wants. Take that. That is not comforting at all. The storm of masked, black-garbed cultivators charged, diving at the wounded below like gulls quarreling over a meal. Moran realized at once what was going on. To the former Emperor TAXIAN-JUN, it could not be clearer that these people were under control of the Zhenlong chess formation. But the perfection and strength of these pawns was a far cry from Xu Shuanglin's pathetic attempts. Oh, okay, so they were even better. I thought for a wonderful moment that they were worse. Crap. There was no way they could face off with this man. Moran turned in horror and howled at the unwitting cultivators behind him. Run! He clamped one hand around Chuaning's wrist and reached out with the other for Jiangxi, who was kneeling on the ground. He never stopped shouting, his pupils like pinpricks. Run! Go now! Get off the soul-summoning platform! You can't stay here! Don't try to fight! You'll lose! He didn't have to repeat himself. As soon as the black-garbed pawns landed and brandished their swords, everyone could sense their terrifying power. The cultivators surged like a tide towards the mouth of their tunnel. At their head was the cowardly Master Ma. He reached the stone doors that led to the dragon's soul pool and froze. Of course he did. People behind him piled up as they skipped to a stop. What's going on? Someone shouted. Keep moving. Master Ma's reply came out as a terrified sob from the door at the pitch-black end of the tunnel. It's closed. What do you mean it's closed? Hua Binan closed the door behind him. Master Ma's legs wobbled and he collapsed to his knees. His face was wet with tears and his body shook like a leaf. This is Mount Jao. Without the blood of the Nangong clan, once it's closed, it will never open again. That's what I was worried about. But where is the stupid guy who luckily stole some of the blood? Can he help? Nangong is gone, but what about Nangong Liu? Someone anxiously cried. Isn't that pawn father of his still in the mountain? Where is he? He's in the Great Hall. He thought it was useless. No one bothered to bring him. Despair filled the tunnel. The eerie darkness chilled them to the bone. What do we do? Go back and try our luck out there? The news hadn't yet travelled. There were still more trying to come in, and many more who couldn't fit. They could only turn back and steel themselves to fight off those mysterious pawns from the rift. In the darkness, Huang Xiaoye hollered, "Let me through! I can open the door." Thank goodness, because I was like, okay, technically he's there and he could do it, but is he nice enough to not just let himself through and doom everyone else? He shoved cultivators out of his way like a massive fish on its migratory journey, pushing through until he stood before the door. Master Ma looked up through teary eyes. Huang Daozhang? He asked blankly. Move aside, let me at it. But your name is Huang, you're not Nanggong. Huang Xiaoye ignored him and rushed to the door. Thank heavens he'd kept that bit of Nanggong's blood. He'd saved it in order to open the treasure chamber and specifically enchanted it to keep it from congealing. But the spell only lasted a short time. He waved his sleeve, suddenly grateful this disaster had happened so quickly. Hopefully the blood would still work. Let's hope. Huang Xiaoye pressed his wizened old hand to the broken stone. The distant voice of the demon dragon echoed out from the tunnel. Who comes? His heart pounded. 7th generation descendant of Rufeng sect, Nanggongse pays his respects. There was silence. Then the dragon rumbled. Wang Li bids master farewell. As the stone doors lowered, Huang Xiaoye ran out of the tunnel, followed by the disciples of Jiang Donghou. Master Ma scurried up and raised his hand in panic. Wait for me, I'm coming, I'm coming. He found the point of the sword held at his chest. Master Ma froze. He slowly looked up. Huang Daozhang, what's the meaning of this? Huang Xiaoye sneered. I threw in my lot with the sage up there. If I let you leave, who's to say you won't come to this humble one seeking revenge? I'm an old man, I can't handle such excitement. No, Master Ma stuttered in horror. What are you doing? Don't mess around. Let's talk things over properly. We're all businessmen here. Huang Daozhang, quickly, let me out, and the gods of Tao Bao estates will always go to the Jiangdonghou at half price. No, quarter price. Alice filled the crease of Huang Xiaoye's lined face. Half price? Once I hold the treasures of Rufeng sect's Mount Jao, what will I care for your worldly goods? What the hell is Taobao estate to me? He extended a hand and gave Master Ma a sharp shove backward. Ma Yun fell to the floor, bringing down everyone around him in a haphazard pile. By the time they staggered to their feet, Huang Xiaoye and the rest of Jiang Donghou stood at the other side of the doorway. Greed, envy, and spiteful glee flickered across Huang Xiaoye's face as he pulled the door mechanism behind. Okay, sorry, I'm like stress reading way too fast, but at the same time, I'm so frustrated. The ultimate form of sass in ancient China, calling yourself humble one when you are in fact not humble at all. Oh, goodness, yes. And now I'm just thinking of Lan Zhan saying, like, oh, you're not qualified to talk to me, but obviously we do not count him in the same realm as this. I just don't know how they escape out of this if they don't stop Huang Xiaoye from closing the door now. Behind him, the members of Jiang Donghou wore expressions of smug conceit. Some even dared to say out loud, serves you right for looking down on us. Our Huang Zhaozhang hasn't done anything wrong, yet he's endured your criticism this entire journey. Sir, you have been the one critiquing everyone this entire journey. This is blood he preserved at risk of his own life. Why should he use it to help you? The stone door rumbled shut again, plunging the cultivators inside the tunnel into suffocating darkness. There was a ringing silence. Finally, one female cultivator buried her face in her hands and began sobbing. Her grief was contagious. The cultivators had lost all faith and courage. They could not go forward, yet dared not turn back. I don't want to die yet. Shifu. Dad, let's turn around and fight to the death. It's better than dying stuck in here. Their voices bounced off the walls. Suddenly, they heard a voice that had been silent for some time. It shook slightly, yet it was iron with determination. Let me. The ashen-faced Master Ma turned, trembling to see light flare in the tunnel. His eyes widened in shock. 魔宗师. Okay. Moran's unreadable features were illuminated by the flames in his palm. He waded through the crowd and came to a stop before the sealed door. You kept some of Nanggong's blood too? Moran said nothing. People were holding off at the mouth of the tunnel, but they wouldn't last long. Those black-clad warriors would break through soon enough. As they climbed the mountain over and over again, Moran had almost stepped in when Nangongso faced danger, but he'd never succeeded in following through. He thought fate had taken pity on him, that it would let him escape that one calamity, escape all these watching eyes. Are we about to find out that his mother is part of the Rufeng sect? No way. Do we know who his father is? Okay, let's see. I have the quote on a hoodie. I get weird looks. I mean, that's a great quote to have on a hoodie. Okay. But now he was trapped. There was no path of escape left. Mozongshi? He didn't glance at Master Ma as he took out the short silver blade he wore at his belt. It sliced across his palm, filling his hand with blood. By now, Xu Meng and Xu Zhengyong had both arrived. Chuaning had also come to a stop behind Moran. Xu Zhengyong asked in confusion, "Renard, what are you doing?" "It's useless. Mount Jao will only obey a Nangong descendant. Your blood won't work." Moran didn't turn. His bleeding hand was shaking, but he still reached out, still viciously smeared it across the stone. It was so cold against his palm, he closed his eyes. The voice of the demon dragon, Wang Lin, echoed in the darkness once again. "Who comes?" Moran swallowed. Before the crowd's watchful eyes, within the stifling silence, Moran slowly and carefully answered, "Seventh generation descendant of Rufeng sect." Xu Meng paled. He took a stumbling step backward, shaking his head. "What?" Xu Zhengyong's expression was even uglier than his son's. His round eyes were fixed on Moran's tall, black-clad silhouette. "How could this be?" he murmured. Every syllable was like the point of a knife. Knowing he would bleed, knowing he couldn't take it back, that he could make no other choice, Moran softly spoke the rest of the words. "Moran, Moye pays his respect." "Impossible!" Xu Meng shouted, eyes scarlet. But the door opened. Wang Lin's voice, as faint as smoke, pierced their eardrums like a gleaming dagger. "Wang Ling bids Master farewell." You know, out of any and everything that I have speculated, this is one thing I never even thought about. Renard. Xu Zhengyong was stupefied into silence. Chu Wanning, too, was completely at a loss. He grabbed Xu Zhengyong's arm and looked forward. The stone door rumbled and slowly lowered into the ground, and the orange gleam of the dragon soul pool poured into the darkness. Moran stood in the doorway with his back to them, his dark silhouette so hazy he seemed scarcely real. "Moran! Moran! How did you open it? What do you mean, seventh generation descendant of Rufeng sect? How? How?" Xu Meng was crazed with fear. "How are you related to Nangong clan? Aren't you? Moran paused in that eerie light. "Everyone, please go through." "Moran!" Xu Meng's voice climbed into a piercing wail. Moran's head turned ever so slightly. He looked as if he wanted to speak, but he never did. Nor did he stop or hesitate. He walked forward, the light flickering around his broad silhouette until it consumed him at the end of the tunnel. The rest of the cultivators of the other great sects pushed forward with all the desperation of fish out of a broken net. In this violent tidal wave, in the escape that resembled the rush of carp in a river, Moran walked alone. He didn't turn. He was too afraid. He saw Yuangshi still in the hall near the dragon soul pool. He went to her and lifted her over his shoulder to bring her out of this place. It didn't have to be Nangongsa who jumped into the pool and offered up his life to the dragon. It could have been him. Moran hadn't known it was possible to wrest Mount Jao from Shuanglin's control like that, but even so, he couldn't be sure. What if he had known? Would he have chosen to die in Nangong's stead? He'd lived 2 lifetimes, eking out an existence under the weight of his guilt. Nangongse was in his 20s. He wasn't even halfway through his life when he'd become ash, leaving nothing behind. In some rational part of his mind, Moran knew Nangongse deserved to remain in the world far more than he did. But it was only human to cling to life. A shriek from behind him. The monsters! The monsters are catching up with us! How could that be? Moran whirled around. The stone had closed again after the last wave exited the tunnel. There was no possible way for those pawns to open it, unless... His face went white. Unless there was someone of Nangong blood among them. I mean, if there's that many pawns, I would not be surprised. In the chaos of his mind, he saw that mysterious black rift again, and recalled the third forbidden technique, the space-time gate of life and death. A freezing cold seemed to crawl up from his feet and coil around his body. Unless it's another him. I hope that's not it. Could the masked man be? No, there was no way. Absolutely not. It would be too much. Even in the past life, no one had managed such a thing. Who could possibly have managed it? Thankfully, Lian Shi had come up beside him. Moran passed Ye Wangqi into his arms and rushed in the opposite direction of the crowd, eyes flashing with frantic lights. Moran, Renard! Shimeng and Shi Zhengyong shouted at him in the tide of people, but Moran didn't turn. He truly didn't know how he could face these two. No secret could stay buried forever. In that regard, both lifetimes were the same. I wonder what had revealed his roots in the previous lifetime. And if he knew it in the previous lifetime, or if it was a surprise to him. Someone grabbed his arm and Moran whipped around. Shizun? You can't go that way, Chuaning said. I'll hold them off. You're the only one who can activate the arrays on Mount Jao. You need to stay with the group and make sure they get out safe. Crap, that's true. Moran stared back at him. Go! The black-garbed man was stepping out of the tunnel, those masked cultivators marching behind him. Hurry, Chuaning snapped. Take them and go. Regardless of the uncertainty and unease tearing into Moran's heart, he had no choice but to retreat with everyone else. Even the struggling Shimeng was dragged away by Shi Zhengyong. In the end, only Chuaning remained in the hall with the dragon soul pool, and those mysterious cultivators streamed in, gradually filling the room with their numbers. What scares me is the idea that this is TAXIAN-JUN and what he will do if he ever gets his hands on Chuaning again. I don't want to see that happen to this timeline of Chuaning. I don't. Turbid liquid in the pool bubbled, throwing its orange light onto the cold stone walls. Chuaning stood alone, sparks crackling along Tianwen's length and reflected in his knife-like eyes. He watched that unknown man who'd come to a stop inside the chamber. Through the heavy mask, that man looked back, watching him in unmoving silence. One of the black-clad cultivators behind him, more excitable than the rest, shouted, You think you're enough to stop us? In your dreams, come. I'll experience your skills myself. He sprang at Chuaning. Before this impatient man could leap even a foot into the air, the black-garbed leader grabbed his neck and yanked him out of it. Your Majesty? The man ignored him, eyes never leaving Chuaning. He tightened his grip until the veins popped on his hand. He squeezed until that agitator's neck snapped with a crack, then tossed him aside. Well, he's not beating the TAXIAN-JUN allegations just yet. Chuaning paled. This man would kill his own? Who are you to experience Chu Zongshi's skills? the man drawled, stepping towards Chuaning. No one behind him dared move again. Holding Tianwen out before him, Chuaning spoke firmly. "Who are you?" The man stopped. He took just a few paces from Chuaning. He stood just a few paces from Chuaning, something unspeakable shining in his eyes. Finally, his laughter rang out through the chamber. "After so long, this venerable one hasn't thought the first thing you'd say would be so cold." Alternate timeline, Moran? Is that what we're getting? Like, not... I mean, that would make more sense, because we know what happened to one timeline version of Moran. He killed himself in sorrow. But what happens if there is a Moran that didn't manage to get Chuaning back from the dead? That caused his death and couldn't bring him back. But wanted to. "Do I know you?" "Oh, you don't recognize me?" "Chuaning, you've always been callous." The man stepped forward again and kept walking. Chuaning's nature was viciously stubborn. He would never retreat. "I wish he would." The man stepped right up to him, presumptuously, dangerously close. A chilling light flickered in Chuaning's palm. He raised it up to strike with the lightning speed of a lifetime of practice, but the man grabbed his wrist as easily as drawing a breath. "You know, I've experienced this technique of yours many times." The man bent down and stared into Chuaning's face, absorbing every detail with naked greed. "But you seem to have forgotten." Chuaning felt hair raise on the... Unless it's like someone from his past that caused the scar that we don't know the origin of yet. Ooh. Okay, let's just keep reading, because I have too many theories and I don't think any of them are right. He'd never been one to fear a stronger opponent, but that gaze was impossible, awful, and complex, as if it hid shocking truths and worse secrets. "Who are you? Do you need this venerable one to remind you?" The man's grip on him was so tight that Chuaning was powerless against it. "The first time you used this technique on me, I was 16. I hope it's not. I mean, it's gonna be freaking Moran, isn't it? But I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping he had another student that he didn't know he had. "You were teaching me hand-to-hand defense. You told me it was an attack that looked simple but was hard to learn, and that I should apply myself to the task and not slack off." That sounds like Moran. Chuaning's eyes widened as he stared in disbelief. There was mirth in the man's eyes, which were lit by a devilish gleam. "The second time you used it was during our final battle. Your strike caught me off guard and injured me badly." With an uncompromising strength, he dragged Chuaning's hand to his heart. There was no heartbeat under Chuaning's palm, as if this man were a corpse. "So? No, that doesn't make sense. Who are you?" "Patience," the man whispered, savoring each syllable before sweetly feeding it into Chuaning's ears. They were even closer now, his lips almost brushing Chuaning's face. "The third time you tried this was in my bed." Crap, this is Moran. "I wanted to sleep with you, but you said you'd had enough. You refused." He moved slowly but inexorably, his hand bruising Chuaning's wrist as he dragged Chuaning's hand down to his chest and abdomen until it rested on something unmistakably intimate. Heaven help us. Chuaning flushed and yanked back his hand as if stung, struggling even harder. The man easily dispelled each strike, as if he knew each of Chuaning's attacks. He brought Chuaning into his arms. What do I do, Chuaning? He whispered, his tone itself a provocation. This venerable one planned to kill and destroy you. So many years have passed. You've changed, and so have I. But now that I have you in front of me, now that I breathe in your scent, I still get hard so quickly. Thanks for that. How the hell are you getting hard if you don't have a heartbeat, sir? Like, that's just very concerning. Get your hands off me. Chuaning had never imagined a confrontation like this. His face flushed and paled in turn, as if he might faint from sheer anger. But he couldn't wrest himself free no matter how he tried. The man was like an inescapable trap, sticky as spider silk. Where is Moran when you need him? He ensnared Chuaning, arms tight around his body. In front of all those pawns, he pulled Chuaning into his arms with a brutal, domineering strength, into an embrace so close and clinging, so hard it hurts. I'll kill you. Amused, the man smiled and let go. Chuaning attacked with murderous intent, his movements swift and vicious, aiming for the kill. Cloak flapping, the man swiftly retreated. He glided like a paper kite and landed safely on the stone a few lengths away, but his mask was not so lucky. Okay, I don't know what we're about to see, but are we ready? It broke beneath Chuaning's strike and shattered on the ground. The man stood in the shadows, face still hidden within the depths of his hood. He sighed. Your terrible temper hasn't changed a bit. Still ready to kill at the drop of a hat. But Chuaning, Shuzong. He crooked his fingers, and a strike of black flew towards him from behind like a gale of dark smoke. He caught it handily. Chuaning saw it was the blade that had appeared at Xianyuan Pavilion auction, one of the blood-soaked holy weapons collected by Zhu Shuanglin. The man caressed Bugui and spoke calmly in tones of utmost malevolence. Do you really have the heart to kill me? He looked up. The hood fell down. It was as if a pail of ice water had been dumped over Chuaning's head. He was engulfed in freezing cold, his ears ringing. He couldn't feel a thing. In that shadow chamber, the man's features were handsome, his face pale, and his smile curved with a wicked obsession. He was a calamity, a demon. He grinned, baring white teeth. Emperor TAXIAN-JUN, Moran, Moye. Bugui slid from its sheath, its glare illuminating his eyes so dark they looked purple. TAXIAN-JUN smiled like a vengeful ghost, a predator opening its fanged maw. Here to experience Shizun's skills for myself. You know, I was in so much denial, but we have art. And it is beautiful. And I hate it for being beautiful. Okay. And we're at the end of the chapter, and we're not close to the end of the hour yet. So that we'll have to see where we get to before the first break. Okay. Chapter 234. The Emperor Returns. How are we at volume 7? And we're not even at the end of the volume. I'm stressed, because this means that there is a lot of nonsense that still has to happen before they have a chance at a potential happy ending. if we even get a happy ending. I don't know. Okay. At the foot of Mount Jao, all the cultivators, with the exception of Jiang Dongho group, who disappeared, had successfully made their escape. Though they knew they were still in danger, many crumpled to the ground as soon as they stepped through the barrier. Eyes rolling back, Ma Yun collapsed over a boulder and wailed. No more. I've had enough, friends. Let's just go home and lock our doors. I seriously can't do this anymore. I mean, yeah, I'm honestly surprised they still have energy to form words and sentences at this point. Go home before we figured out what the array was and who came out of it? Asked Jiangxi. What can we do? If we had the strength to fight them, we wouldn't have had to flee so pathetically. Master Xiangjin added his voice. Zhangmen, let's listen to Ma Zhuangzhu this time. Instead of heroically mounting a defense here and imperiling ourselves, we should regroup and return stronger with better preparations. I mean, I have mixed feelings about this because on the one hand I totally agree. On the other hand, I'm just thinking about the damage that TAXIAN-JUN could do while being left alone, you know? Jiang Xi pursed his lips and looked towards the Shizun Peak contingent. Xu Zhengyong and Xu Meng both still stared up Mount Zhao's main path, equally dazed. Finally, a figure flew out from these clouds of billowing dust. Moran, mumbled Xu Meng. I don't want to be here when Xu Meng finds out what Moran used to be like. Moran was last to exit the barrier, dark brows drawn low. He looked over the assembled group. It's a Zhenlong chess formation and maybe the space-time gates of life and death. If that's really what it is, we don't know what caliber of person might emerge from it. All of you, hurry up and leave. Don't throw your lives away. Everyone's safety is more important. He paused before turning to Jiangxi. Jiangmen, please take everyone to Rain Isle. With a Xuanwu barrier for defense, you can keep Huabinan away for a while. And your sect specializes in medicine. There is no better place for those cursed with the heart tunnelers to receive treatment. What about you? Jiangxi asked. Shizun is still on the mountain. I'll go back and help him as soon as you've left and meet you back at your sect once this is dealt with. How the hell are we dealing with Moran when we couldn't deal with him before, and Moran himself has admitted that he is not as powerful as he used to be? It really is a shame I don't drink because tea is not strong enough right now. Okay. After a long silence, Jiang Shi bowed to Moran. We shall wait for you at Guyuye. Farewell. The injured, exhausted, and debilitated made their way. Let's try that again. The injured, exhausted, and debilitated made ready to leave this dangerous place with Jiang Shi. Moran suddenly called out again. Jiangmen? Does Mozongshi have other matters to discuss? Monsieur. Moran didn't go on. I know. No one will harm a hair on her head. I promise you that. Only then did Moran relax. While Jiang Shi and the others left, those of Shizun Peak stayed put. After hesitating, Xu Zhengyong went up with his brows furrowed and his voice hoarse. Renard, what's this about? Moran gazed at his uncle, then at his cousin. His heart ached horribly, but he forced a smile. It's a long, long story. Uncle, take Shumeng to Guiye too. I'll tell you everything later. But how could Shumeng wait that long? Anxiety and impatience flooded him. How could you be a descendant of Rufeng sect? You've grown up at Shizun Peak. You... He stammered for a moment, but what came out as his eyes reddened at the rims was, "You're my girl, right?" Can we just bundle up Shumeng and protect him forever? Moran looked at him. Shumeng was shaking. He was obviously trying his best to control himself, but he was still shaking. The way he looked, dazed and miserable, was so pitiable. Moran tasted bitterness at the back of his throat. He didn't know what to say. He patted Shimung's shoulder. When I first came to Shizun Peak, you didn't even want to acknowledge me, he smiled ruefully. He dared not meet Shimung's wide and tearful eyes. They were too clear, too passionate, and he was dirty. He was scared. It took Shimung a long beat to respond, his voice almost too hoarse to understand. Can't you give me a straight answer? His fingers tightened around Long Chen's hilt. Moran had given him the crystal embedded into its scimitar. He clutched it like floating driftwood. In a matter of a few hours, he'd watched as Nangkongsu threw himself into a demon dragon's blood pool, watched as Shimei was blinded and taken away, watched as Moran used his own blood to open a seal only a Nangkong descendant could activate. He couldn't catch his breath. He felt like he was drowning. It's a little bit of a weird thought, but what if Shimei isn't any kind of evil? What if he somehow knew that his death had led to Moran going astray, and he thought that if he could stop himself from dying, he could keep Moran from going astray, and it only seemed like he was on the wrong side of things because there were other people working on the wrong side alongside him trying to set things right. But maybe I'm being too lenient because that would just, it would be great if Shimei was not evil. We really don't need another person to be evil. We have enough. But I don't know if that's me being too hopeful. And I haven't examined this thought enough to know if it falls apart really quickly once you take all the other things into consideration. So we'll see. Yeah, Shimon is being a little sweetie lately. Yes, indeed. Okay, sorry. Watched as Shimei was blinded and taken away. Watched as Moran used his own blood to open a seal only a Nangong descendant could activate. He couldn't catch his breath. He felt like he was drowning. You and me both, Shimon. Moran couldn't bear it. Okay, he said. I'll give you a straight answer. He grasped Shimon's shoulder more firmly. He didn't know if it was Shimon or himself who was trembling, but it no longer mattered. He met Shimon's eyes and said with perfect clarity, Listen, I've never been part of Rufen's sect. In this life, I've never done anything to harm Shizun Peak. If I can, I will spend the rest of my life serving the sect. That answers everything and nothing at the same time. Is it so hard to say I will always want to be your girl or something like that, which at least reassures Shimon that if there is going to be a relationship being cut between them, it's not going to come from Moran's side. Shimon's lips parted as if to speak, but his tears fell before words could escape his mouth. He bit his lip in silent endurance, but after a moment he broke down. Shimei and I never understood him. To be honest, I've never understood you either. I've been too willful. I never considered how either of you felt. I don't know anything. I'm always messing things up. But, huh? Never understood him. Who's him? Nangongse? He paused, tears coursing down his face. But I really do care about you guys. Oh, sorry. Shimei said I never understood him. I misread that, my bad. but I do really care about you guys. I've never cursed at you or bullied Shimei. I'll never curse at you or bully Shimei ever again. I wish everything could go back to how it was. I just want everything to go back to how it was. He was sobbing so hard he could barely speak. You better not be lying to me. He isn't, but... Moran couldn't bear to let him continue. He guided Chumong over to Shizun, his voice low, and so weighted with tears it brought to mind dawn dew lying heavily on blooming flowers. Be good. Go with Uncle. Once this is over, I'll come find you as soon as I can. He turned back toward Mount Jao's barrier and released the seal. He walked through without looking back. And I just lost my place. Well done. I am stressed. Okay. So we are at a scene break. Because I don't trust Meat Bun at all to go easy on us, I think I'm gonna take the 10-minute break now rather than on the hour, so we can attempt to go into the next scene with a little less scattered thoughts at the very least. So I will see you guys again at like 1/2 past the hour. Okay, we are back. I hope the audio is still okay. The eye is holding up for now, and we'll just keep going. So, for anyone who is following along with their own physical copy, we were on page 260, I believe. Yes, middle of page 260. So while on break, I came to the realization that we should technically sort of be able to finish this volume next week, because there is about 67 pages per live stream left. Now, the thing is, generally, if I'm like trying to pace myself really well and not talking too much, which I have not been successful with during this live stream, then I can maybe get about 60 pages done. So I don't know how plausible 67 pages is right now. We're gonna see where we end off today, and then we'll go from there. I'm considering maybe doing 2 live streams of 2 hours next week, so Wednesday and Friday, just so we can actually get through this, because I did have to take a break during this volume, so it's been taking a bit longer to get through than it was supposed to. But yeah, we'll just see how it goes for tonight, and we'll decide at the end of this. Okay. I don't know if I'm ready, but we're gonna keep going. The chamber containing the dragon soul pool was in ruins, its toppled stone pillars lying in the wreckage of a bitter fight of which only drifting smoke remained. TAXIAN-JUN's long blade was pressed to Chuaning's throat, a stark red seeping from his skin and staining the pitch-black edge grate. Chuaning closed his eyes, pursing his lips, and said nothing. Shizun, I don't think you were taking this fight seriously. There was no response. You were distracted. TAXIAN-JUN dragged him upright, the long blade Bugwei disappearing with a flick of his fingers. But he'd worked the strongest binding spells in that fraction of a moment. The jade green glow kept Chuaning firmly bound as TAXIAN-JUN grabbed his chin and forced his face up. Tell this venerable one, what are you thinking about? Chuaning's eyes fluttered open, that dear yet deeply alien face reflected in his pupils. He was afraid. This wasn't Moran. But each of this man's attacks were so similar to Moran's. Most terrifyingly of all, Chuaning had dreamed of him before. In those unthinkable dreams he'd had of himself and Moran, he'd always seemed to have this pale and angular face. There was wickedness in his handsomeness. Those dark pupils filled not with tenderness, but with a cruel and crazed light. Even if you don't say it, this venerable one knows. TAXIAN-JUN purred. Shizun must be wondering who I am, what I'm babbling about, why I've come. Pale fingers caressed Chuaning's face. Don't worry, this venerable one will tell you everything in due time. By the way, I looked down at Chuaning's left hand. Don't bother summoning Juga or Huisha. This venerable one is ready. I would never make the same mistake twice. Interesting. And the problem is now I just reread the first few volumes and still I cannot remember all the details that we have about the different ways that they've faced off in the past. So I can't match that with what he's saying to figure out if he is like Moran as we knew him, same type of timeline, or if he is from a different timeline where things went completely differently but still was TAXIAN-JUN, you know? Chuaning's expression darkened at the mention of his other 2 holy weapons. Though his phoenix eyes were stormy, there was confusion in them. TAXIAN-JUN seemed to delight in this look of bafflement on his stern face. He laughed aloud. "What is it?" he said, stroking Chuaning's cheek. "Does it shock you that I know about Juga and Haja? I understand. This venerable one understood long before coming here. I know something of this place. My counterpart in this world hasn't yet turned everything into a sea of blood. He hasn't forced you to meet him with the swords drawn. Of course he hasn't seen those two weapons." Again, that kind of I'm starting to get a little bit hopeful here that this version of TAXIAN-JUN doesn't know that Moran is turning out completely differently. Which confirms not confirms, but strengthens my theory that maybe if the person whose voice was distorted, who erased Moran's memories, is Shimei, that he and this TAXIAN-JUN aren't working together. Please let that be the case. We don't need another enemy. Your counterpart in this world? TAXIAN-JUN gave him a smile, but not an answer. Chills ran down Chuaning's spine. This Moran looked at him as one would look at a corpse, or a mirage. His gaze was raw and feral, his pupils filled with an intensity that threatened to draw onlookers into his madness. "The space-time gates of life and death," he said deliberately. "Shizun ought to know this forbidden technique well." Tell me more. Does Chuaning have experience being on the receiving end of this? Chuaning tensed. "In a different universe, Shizun, you've been dead for many years." "Oh!" He watched Chuaning's rapidly paling face lose the last of its color. TAXIAN-JUN gazed at him, an inconstant light dancing in his eyes. Like a sword unsheathed or a dragon breaking the waves, his calmness shattered. He yanked Chuaning closer, his demeanor dissolving into insanity. "That's right. Just like this. This exact face. I watched this face of yours. I watched you lie in the Red Lotus Pavilion like the living dead, day in and day out. There was no color in your cheeks, your body was pristine, but you never spoke or opened your eyes. In that universe, you've been dead a long time. You had your revenge on me." Okay, that confirms the alternate timeline, Moran. Like an alternate timeline, Moran. This is gonna get confusing very quickly. He gulped in air, eyes blazing. They were full of despair, a wild storm gathering within. "Chuaning, I hate you. You left me there alone." Despite his words, he clutched Chuaning tighter, crushing him in his embrace. Chuaning was warm in his arms, like a flame. It burned TAXIAN-JUN. He sighed low in his throat, tightening his grip around the long-awaited warmth, wanting nothing more than to devour it whole. Then, whether he lived or died, whether amidst searing heat or bitter cold, he'd never have a companion. He'd have someone to take with him to the grave. Great! We want that. Yeah, definitely. He wouldn't be so terribly lonely. No. Chuaning's scalp was prickling, his vision darkening. What was going on? He didn't understand at all. Who had died? Who had left whom alone? The doors to the Dragon Soul Pool opened again. Their shadow shifted, and someone was running towards him with an anxious cry of "Shizun!" Those 100 of cultivators drew their swords and moved into defensive positions. At the sound of the newcomer's voice, Emperor TAXIAN-JUN paused for a moment before smiling warmly. "And here I was wondering who had come. So it's him." He waved a hand, a slow and careless gesture. "Stand back," he said to his pawns. "Let him through." Moran had spent the entire trip up the mountain thinking about the Genlong chess formation and the space-time gates of life and death. Huabinan couldn't be the ultimate mastermind. If all this had been Huabinan's doing, Shuanglin would have purely exposed him after he wrecked Shuanglin's plans at the soul summoning platform. There we go. Not the dumbest dumb Husky. Then who was behind it? Zhenlong Chess, the space-time gate, Bugui, the ancient legend of two worlds colliding, each of these things connected. A terrible notion rose in his mind, one that chilled him to the bone. He didn't believe it. He had run the whole way refusing to believe it, until he arrived at the Dragon Soul pool and saw that man's face. Moran's ears rang. Blood rushed to his head. He couldn't breathe, his lips opening and closing as terror gripped him. No. No. How could this be real? The man in the hall stood, ringed by those pawns, his face contemptuous and cold, his eyes alight with scorn and amusement. He watched Moran idly. They had the same eyes, nose, lips. They had the same face and spirit, the same body and soul. The differences were barely perceptible. It was as if Moran was looking in a mirror, or looking through the sands of time to see that ghoulish, shadowy version of himself. The corners of TAXIAN-JUN's lips poked up, splitting his mouth into a bloodthirsty grin. I'm stressing right now. He hauled Chuaning before him, stroking the seam of Chuaning's lips to spell him silent before addressing the man at the door. Oh, it's Mo Zongshi. This very one has heard so much about you. Now that the space-time gate has opened, we meet at last. He paused, eyes glinting. White teeth snapped around his last sweetly icy words. It's an honor. I'm stressed. Meat Bun has been watching too much Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Too many timelines. Feels like it. Interesting. The chapter titles have been very temperamental. Because now, so we had this venerable one can change the chapter title or the titles if he wants, take that. And then we had, what was it? The Emperor Returns, and now we have Nowhere to Go. And I'm trying to understand what the naming convention reasonings is here. Because I feel like Meat Bun is the kind of author that has a point to why she is choosing to have this venerable one here and then going back to nothing attached in other instances. And I fear it's going to be devastating once I figure it out. Okay. Chapter 235. How Moran took an unsteady step backward, shaking his head. How could this be? It's you? Correct. It's indeed this venerable one. TAXIAN-JUN looked him up and down, smiling. Why do I get the feeling Moran is gonna get very annoyed with the way that he used to say this venerable one? Like, he's gonna get annoyed at himself. I kinda need that bit of levity right now. This venerable one thought you would have forgotten much of your past life when you were reborn, but it seems you remember it quite well. From the look on your face, I'd say you already guessed at my existence. Perhaps you're not so stupid after all. Hot kettle. 1,000 menacing words crowded to the tip of Moran's tongue, ready to pour from his throat, but what escaped from his stammering lips was no more than You're already dead! Oh? You took poison back at Wushan Palace, a lethal poison with no chance of survival. You died before the heaven-piercing tower. You were buried in the coffin beneath the tree. You're dead. TAXIAN-JUN chuckled. But that's not the whole story. He looked up slowly, revealing a brittle smile. His eyes were like the fangs of the most ferocious beast, ready to pierce and shatter Mo Zongshi's facade. Why doesn't this venerable one try instead? Because am I back? Can you guys still hear me? Where did we leave off? I'm not sure. Okay, where did we leave off? Last I heard was all the "you're supposed to be dead" speech. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's just recap this bit. So I'm gonna start from the middle of page 265 for anyone referencing. You took poison back at Wushan Palace, a lethal poison with no chance of survival. You died before the heaven-piercing tower. You were buried in a coffin beneath the tree. You're dead. TAXIAN-JUN chuckled. But that's not the whole story. He looked up slowly, revealing a brittle smile. His eyes were like fangs of the most ferocious beast, ready to pierce and shatter Mozongshi's facade. Why doesn't this venerable one try instead? His voice was smooth as silk, carefree and mocking. That's right, this venerable one is dead. The one who knows it best is standing right in front of me, he said with a breathless silence, because you are this venerable one's escaped soul. Okay. He began laughing. The endlessly benevolent Mozongshi. Even across these two worlds, this venerable one has heard tell of your, how shall we put it, heroic deeds? He grinned. You're so much fun. I thought you didn't remember much of the past and that's how you could act as if nothing had happened. But you do remember, don't you? Moran clenched his jaw. Oh, Mozongshi. Did you think no one would know as long as you stayed silent? Did you think the world would give you a second chance as long as you put down the butcher's knife? Most importantly, TAXIAN-JUN tightened his grip on Chuaning's neck, his nails digging deep into flesh. Bruised and furious, Chuaning couldn't say a word through his bespelled lips. Did you think I would be so kind as to let you bask in the light when the fire was gone from my world? Don't touch him. TAXIAN-JUN snickered. Don't touch him? Don't you think it's a bit rich for you to say this to me? Is TAXIAN-JUN. Whose soul is it? Because it kind of seems like it's Moran's soul, but then at the same time... I really hope Shumonga's stays unproblematic. We don't need him to become a villain. But this doesn't feel like Shimei at all. And also would not make sense within that context. So whose soul is this? It can't be the original Moran of this world soul. That wouldn't make sense either. Then again, if you have lived years and years cleaning up a different version of you's wrecked world and had no one around you, I can imagine that might breed a lot of resentment, which maybe would turn you back into what he was. Okay. Still gripping Chuaning, he paced in slow circles, his eyes never leaving Moran's. TAXIAN-JUN stared down Mo Zongshi. Moran stared down Mo Weiye. The past locked eyes with the present. Have you forgotten how this venerable one touched him? TAXIAN-JUN taunted. Who are you putting on this virtuous show for? Don't say it. Why not? Did you not think it was fun? Were you not satisfied? After so many years, across a death and a life, don't you want to take a walk down memory lane? Not really, at all. Moran shook his head again and again. His expression was even worse than Chuaning's, filled with fear and hopelessness. Don't say it. Oh, that's how badly you want this venerable one to shut up? Fascinating. Our kind and heroic Mo Zongshi looks. TAXIAN-JUN carefully shaped the words in his mouth. Very scared. Moran couldn't hold back any longer. The sight of Chuaning held so tightly in TAXIAN-JUN's arms set his heart racing with fear. He didn't think. All he wanted was to stop this devil from speaking, to bury every inch of that bygone ugliness in a coffin under 6 feet of earth. The grave flared to life and tore towards TAXIAN-JUN, its scarlet sparks crackling. Its light was brighter and more vicious than ever before. TAXIAN-JUN danced aside, his expression shifting. Tianwen? But even as he said the word, he knew it wasn't. Your new holy weapon certainly is interesting. He cast a thoughtful glance at the red willow vine. When he met Moran's eyes again, his gaze was several degrees colder. Because that's how it is. He leapt backward, shoving Chuaning towards a subordinate before lifting a hand and summoning Bugui. Come, spar with this venerable one. I want to know if I'm stronger wielding Bugui or a vine whip. Crap, I hate this. And my computer is showing error again. How is things on your side? Is it very stuttery? I don't know. Let's take a sip of tea while we wait. I don't know why YouTube is being this temperamental today. I'm scared. I don't want him to face TAXIAN-JUN because I think he will fail. I don't think he is as ruthless as he used to be, and he hasn't had the time to cultivate as well as TAXIAN-JUN has. It stuttered a couple of times, but right now it's back. Oh, great. Okay, I hope it's not too annoying. Okay. TAXIAN-JUN ran his hands down the length of the long blade, and Bugui glowed green, imbued with the spiritual energy. Mo Zongshi followed suit, brushing his fingers over the willow vine. Zhenggui blazed crimson, its forked flames tearing at their fire elemental? TAXIAN-JUN laughed out loud. I do have a dual elemental spiritual core, but I remember I much preferred wood over fire. Why did you change that? Moran gave him no response. His expression was set, his mouth tightly pursed. There was a hint of sorrow in his gaze. His were the eyes of someone dangling on the edge of an abyss. Those near-identical figures flew into the sky, matching blow for blow in pitched battle. Zhenggui and Bugui screamed soundlessly, coursing with furious spiritual energy. Their clashing was like a dragon slamming into a whale, or a towering wave crashing over a leviathan. Paving stones around the dragon's soul pool shattered, sending loose gravel flying. The bursts of spiritual energy sent the lava of the dragon's soul pool splashing high in the air and spilling across the ground. The onlookers enchanted their feet to the oozing lava without burning them, and TAXIAN-JUN and Mo Zongshi did the same. The two of them rivaled each other in ferocity, the long blade clashing against the vine whip. Now I've lost my place. Let's try that again. The two of them rivaled each other in ferocity, the long blade clanging as the vine whip cracked. One black shadow flew at another. Bloodthirsty eyes met despairing ones as each strike and every hit flared at the apex of their power. Amidst the shriek of weapons colliding, the two of them leapt into the air. The whip scraped against the long blade, sending up sparks that lit two pale faces, one in death reversed, one in life akin to death. Oh, that's a sentence. And meanwhile, I'm just over here, like, I know technically they did say that TAXIAN-JUN bound Chuaning real well, but he is currently in the hands of a subordinate, so if there's ever a chance for Chuaning to maybe make an escape, now is the time. I know I'm hoping for too much. And now my eye is agitated again. Sorry. I don't know if we're already here at volume 7. Where the hell do we go from here? Torrential waves crashed in TAXIAN-JUN's eyes. Bugui, temper spirits, he cried, sending a surge of spiritual energy into the weapon. Mo Zhongshu gritted his teeth and did the same with Jiang Wei. Filled with their spiritual energies, the weapons glowed, crimson dueling teal. With an earth-shattering boom, Bugui pierced Moran's shoulder, and Jiang Wei slashed TAXIAN-JUN's left arm. Both groaned and fell back to the ground, panting. Neither spared a thought for their wounds. All their attention was bent on their opponent. There were two beasts locked in a fight from which only one could emerge victorious. I'm stressed. TAXIAN-JUN's eyes darkened. Your whip strikes look too much like his, meaning Chuaning's, of course. Mo Zhongshu had no time to waste on TAXIAN-JUN. His eyes blazed. Get the hell out of here. You mean this venerable one? TAXIAN-JUN scoffed. What right do you have? Have you worn the skin of a sheep for so long you've forgotten your teeth are stained with the lamb's blood? They rushed at each other again, holding nothing back. TAXIAN-JUN flew like the wind, sending sparks showering across the lava roiling beneath his feet. But how could Moran not anticipate every one of his strikes? Battling TAXIAN-JUN was like fighting his own reflection on the surface of a lake. He withdrew before TAXIAN-JUN's blade even fell, molten rock sizzling beneath his soles. Each of their movements and gestures were precisely anticipated. 100 blows were exchanged in an instant, but both were evenly matched. Neither could defeat the other. Actually, when you put it like that, it actually feels like Moran should eventually, but the problem is he doesn't have the same level of spiritual power as Moran, as TAXIAN-JUN does. But in terms of growth, he knows what his old fighting abilities were and the moves that he tended towards. But TAXIAN-JUN does not have that same benefits. He doesn't know how Moran moves with a brand new weapon and with a brand new perspective on life. So that should theoretically give him a little bit of an upper hand that I think unfortunately is just enough to match the fact that TAXIAN-JUN has more spiritual energy to work with. So I don't think they're gonna be able to beat each other, but theoretically, move-wise, Moran should have him bested. Did you guys see that is getting a hardcover book, box set in 2026, and it's, oh! I mean, not that I can afford that, but it's nice to know. That's probably gonna be beautiful. I wish I had known that hardcovers were gonna be coming out, because then I probably would have waited instead of buying the soft covers, but then at the same time, can I even afford the hardcovers considering how much the soft covers already are costing me? South African rand is very weak. one thing I wanted to mention. What was it? Oh, but did you guys see that it seems like Scumvillain season 2 is coming out? I can't find any news of it on my anime list, but then I did see a post of it from Billy, so we'll have to wait and see, but that would be great if it did come. Sweat beaded on Moran's forehead. TAXIAN-JUN was also panting shallowly. They paced, weary, circling each other. A drop of sweat slid between two dark brows, hung for a moment, then fell to the ground. Moran ground his teeth. What are you doing this for? I've already said it. The fire has gone out of this venerable one's world. Don't even dream of taking this last flame for yourself. Moran's temper fled. He's your last flame too, but this venerable one can't have him. TAXIAN-JUN spat. Anyway, what difference is there between the two of us? This venerable one's hands are bathed in blood. Are yours any cleaner? What right do you have to Shimei, to Chuaning, to that ridiculous uncle and cousin of yours, while this venerable one is doomed to an endless night without dreams? Why should you have him? The question that Moran probably has avoided thinking about since he came back. I mean, that's what it looks like. I'm hoping that it's not, some kind of very late April Fool's joke or something. Moran froze. But you've had him before. He stared at himself from the past life. The words he'd held in his heart for so long took shape in that murmur. You've had him before. You were the one who trampled him underfoot. You were the one who snuffed him out. TAXIAN-JUN's expression turned vicious, his nose wrinkling and his eyes flaring like an evil dragon twisted in their depths. He was so upset he dropped the imperial pronoun entirely. I destroyed him? Ridiculous. How are you so sure he wasn't the one destroying me? You don't know the truth of what happened at the Heavenly Rift. I don't need to, TAXIAN-JUN sneered. Moeya, it's too late. Everything turned out fine, didn't it? I just need him to be alive, to be mine, to have him in my grasp. I don't care if he's happy or if he hates me. None of that matters. He paused. As long as I can see him. Oh, this is where you see how much Moran has grown. To see how twisted his mindset was once upon a time, so starkly and directly against where Moran is now. Tormented by fury and anguish, torn by all-encompassing regrets, Moran's voice shook. So did the rest of him. You've already ruined him once. Are you going to ruin yourself and him from this world a second time? TAXIAN-JUN's cheeks dimpled brilliantly as he studied Moran's expression. What's there to ruin? It's the same for you, isn't it? It doesn't matter if he lives or dies as long as he's in my hands. Nothing else matters. Moran shook his head, his eyes falling shut. You're wrong, he rasped. He doesn't deserve that. He's the one who treated you best. Ridiculous. TAXIAN-JUN's smile froze on his face. He's the one who treated me best? Then what about Shimei? Wasn't do you hear yourself? Shiming-Jing has always been gentle and thoughtful towards you. He's the one you ought to care for. Now you're telling me that Chua Ning's the best? Do you know how absurd you sound? You're the one who's absurd. What must poor Chua Ning be thinking as this is happening? They pressed close, spiritual energy sizzling in the collision. The rims of Moran's eyes were red. He treated you with sincerity. It's just that he's foolish. There are so many stupid things he did that he refused to tell you about. Wake up. The object of your affection isn't Shimei. When have you ever felt desire for Shimei? When you lie in your empty bed in Wushan Palace, who do you think about? This venerable one would argue that he's good for sleeping with. TAXIAN-JUN idly responded. So what? He can never replace Shimei. This man was himself, but his words infuriated Moran so deeply his head seemed to ring. Don't talk about him like that. TAXIAN-JUN narrowed his eyes. So protective. Did you crawl into bed with him again? Moran said nothing. You I don't like saying that. You've slept with him in this life too. He watched Moran with the slitted gaze of a snake. Neither had stopped fighting for a second. Some of the pawns, unable to withstand the force of their spell work, lay curled up on the ground. Oh, interesting, okay. TAXIAN-JUN flicked his eyes sideways to Chuaning. Mozongshi, he murmured. This venerable one heard Shimei was alive and well in this world, and yet you neglect him like this. For a beat, Moran found himself at a complete loss as to how to argue with this mysterious revived jackass who'd stepped out of the space-time gates. What about you then? He managed. You're now in the world where Shimei is alive. Why were you clinging to my Shizun when I entered? He's asking the important questions and I appreciate it. Not that we want him to necessarily shift his focus to Shimei, but still. Your Shizun? TAXIAN-JUN swung his gaze back to Moran, mouth twisted in mockery. Huh, you know what kind of relationship this venerable one has with your Shizun? Tell me, do I have the right to hold him or not? Moran only wanted him to release Chuaning. Do you think this behavior is respectful to Shimei? Someone as pure Shimei cannot be profaned. TAXIAN-JUN didn't take the bait. Chuaning is different, he lazily said. He looks so high and mighty, so formidable, so self-assured. But have you forgotten how he looks when he's taking you? Let's just go with that. I have been so happy to not have to try and come up with all these different words these last few chapters, or actually volumes, and now we're back to me having to try and be creative on the spot, and I'm terrible at it. Also, as much as I get where you're coming from with the made love thing, I don't want that connected to TAXIAN-JUN in any way, shape, or form. So I shall have to find another word. Moran stalled. He hadn't expected TAXIAN-JUN to be so brazen. His words immediately conjured the mental image of Chuaning moaning wantonly beneath him, his mind racing ahead despite himself, recalling that evening when Chuaning, under the influence of the strongest aphrodisiac in the world, had succumbed to pleasure, raising his hips to meet Moran's thrusts with unfettered fervour. He recalled the sweat-soaked, bestial intensity of their coupling. He remembered those phoenix eyes, humiliated and resentful, yet brimming with tears fluttering closed. Chuaning's glassy gaze and parted lips, his helpless panting. He squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them again, they were sparking with flame. I'm nothing like you. In this lifetime, I never what? This time it was TAXIAN-JUN who was confused. He never cherished Chuaning, so he couldn't conceive of the tenderness and restraint Moran had exercised in their bed. A turn or more passed before the fury and helplessness in the other man's eyes clued him in. What followed was abject shock. Wait, you're joking, right? Have you really not? I don't know if it's a smart thing to give that kind of ammunition to your past self, Moran. Because now, if he's spiteful enough, he's just gonna make you watch as he does the same thing to Chuaning that you did all those years ago. If Meatbun dares go there, I am screaming. Moran clenched his jaw so hard his teeth ached. The red halo hazing off Janglier seemed to solidify, as if ready to destroy the entirety of the Dragon Soul Pool's chamber. TAXIAN-JUN burst into laughter. Shi, perhaps we're not so alike after all. Are we even the same person? Huh? One was a mad dog, the other a loyal hound. The mad dog howled with teeth bared, while the loyal hound silently, shamefully, and stubbornly stood in his path. Faced with his colossal misdeeds, the look of powerlessness on the loyal hound's face was despairing and deeply pitiful. But neither seemed able to win the fight. TAXIAN-JUN gradually grew bored. All right, I've had enough, Shi. Have a taste of my true power. He waved his hand, and those waiting Zhenglong pawns charged forth. Moran was instantly surrounded, stuck without a chance of escape. This is your true power? I mean, theoretically, I know, like, Meatbun could totally justify this not being the case, but theoretically it's the same person, it's the same blood. He should be able to confuse the general chest formation if Meatbun wants to be nice, but she rarely ever wants to be nice, so I'm not putting my hope in it. TAXIAN-JUN slipped away from the throng and wandered over to Chuaning, turning to show Moran a sneer. This venerable one's chess pieces are this venerable one's weapons. Of course they're my true power. Moran watched as he patted Chuaning's face with the bloody edge of Bugui, then reached out to grip his jaw and hiss something into his ear. His vision went white with rage. He forgot Chuaning and Bugui shared a hostile connection. Bugui! He shouted. That long blade gleamed and swayed in TAXIAN-JUN's grip. It seemed conflicted, hesitant. It didn't know which master it should obey. TAXIAN-JUN frowned at his weapon. Oh? You're going to listen to him? But pain burst inside Chuaning's skull at this call. Those dreams he'd had, those shattering scrapes, poured into his head like a wave of sandy stone tumbling downhill. The crimson drapes, the sharp musk of the firs, their entangled limbs kneeling outside the hall, hearing the snickers of the palace maids. I don't want to be here for this. TAXIAN-JUN noticed his reaction and lifted a silencing spell with a twitch of his fingers. What's wrong with you? Chuaning made no answer. Agony consumed him. He felt as if his head would split apart. He saw ashes blanketing the earth, smoke filling the sky, a black-robed man standing between them, surrounded by corpses strewn across a desolate plain. Shizun. The man turned to reveal Moran's face, grinning a devilish grin. Something red and slick pulsed in his hand. Upon closer inspection, it was a still beating human heart. You're finally here. Did you come to stop me? He squeezed that heart disintegrated in his hands, exposing the dazzling spiritual core within. Moran absorbed it into his own palm. He closed it in one step after another. We were master and disciple half our lives, and never thought things would come to this. Veins stood out at Chuaning's temples and blood rushed through his ears. He closed his eyes. TAXIAN-JUN watched the change come over him and reached up to touch his face, then wrenched his jaw upward. What's wrong? Does it hurt? Chuaning was shaking in his grip. I didn't injure you that badly. TAXIAN-JUN frowned, misunderstanding his pain. When did you become so weak? Why do you care? But Chuaning was silent. He knit his brows, trying to speak, when a loud crash came from outside. TAXIAN-JUN's already pallid face turned paler. Someone broke through Mount Jao's barrier? He whirled around, eyes flashing. Interesting. I hope it's not Shimon. An almond yellow silhouette streaked in at terrifying speed, moving in an eerie frenzy like a drifting ghost. In the blink of an eye, that figure had wrested Chuaning out of his hands. Moran's cry of Shizun came just as Moran's cry of Shizun came just as TAXIAN-JUN cried out Waning. They exchanged a mutually scornful look before turning to the uninvited guest, hanging in the air, his yellow monk's robes fluttering. Master Haja! I should not be this happy, because this is still concerning, but this is something that TAXIAN-JUN has never experienced before, so I hope this means that there's hope. I'm stressed. What to expect right now? Haja's expression was ugly. He seemed more shriveled than he had been 5 years ago, but the sharpness of his eyes hadn't faded in the least. They still resembled light over water, rippling like ceaseless waves. Moran relaxed. He didn't know why Haja had appeared, but this was the man who'd used rebirth to save Chuaning. Surely he wouldn't hurt him. I mean, these days I'm not sure about anything anymore, but let's hope you're right. Get Waning's name out of your mouth, TAXIAN-JUN. Yes. But the question remains, how did Moran, or rather, how did TAXIAN-JUN come back from the dead? That is very concerning. TAXIAN-JUN had never seen this man before, and his expression had gone dangerous. Oh look, a bald donkey. And where did you crawl out from? Will you oppose this venerable one as well? Haja shot him a glance before looking towards Moran once more. He seemed unfazed by the presence of 2 more warriors, his expression closer to worry than surprise. Shizun, Haja bowed to him. There were too many present to keep TAXIAN-JUN from overhearing. He brought his message to Moran's ears with a spell. I cannot stay long. Come to Dragonblood Mountain at once. Find me there. He paused and repeated, at once. You expect TAXIAN-JUN to just let Moran go like that? Okay. There was no more. He left with the same quickness with which he'd come and disappeared. Neither the Zhenlong pawns nor the barrier around Mount Jao stopped him. There was an instant where Moran clearly saw a cultivator grab him by the arm, but in the next, Haja was far beyond the chamber. Pawn's hand had caught nothing but cold air. We're gonna have to go down to the underworld again to I don't even know. TAXIAN-JUN had turned to give chase when a shrill whistle cut through the air. Freezing in place, he swore. Now? The whistle kept screaming. Brows tightly knitted, TAXIAN-JUN cast a final glance at Moran and reluctantly waved a hand to the black-clad crowd behind him. Count your lucky stars. There'll be plenty of time yet for us to cross blades. With those parting words, he led the massed chess pieces back in the direction of the soul-summoning platform. Someone's controlling him? Thought, but it feels ridiculous. Then again, all of the theories that I've had so far have been ridiculous. So what's new? What if the 9th Ghost King of the Underworld, the other venerable one, has something to do with this? maybe the ninth Ghost King gave TAXIAN-JUN a chance to like live in his already dead body and bring back Shimei in exchange for Chuaning, who is somehow related to Chuzun. That's what my current theory is. It doesn't make sense, but it's a thought. Okay. Because I can't think who else would have the luxury of just ordering TAXIAN-JUN about. With those parting words, he led the massed chess pieces back in the direction of the soul-summoning platform. His dark army had arrived with ferocity and left in haste. Haja had vanished, and so had TAXIAN-JUN. No one was left by the Dragon Soul pool. Moran sped to the soul-summoning platform just in time to see TAXIAN-JUN leap into the air and sail back through that black demonic array. His Zhenglong pawns followed, one after another, swallowed up by that endless darkness in a blink. As the last wave of cultivators passed through, the array creased and twisted, shrinking into nothingness. Only the moon hung in the night sky, tinged with a bloody crimson. The space-time gates of life and death had closed. Moran stood atop the soul-summoning platform in the howling wind. He looked up at the endless night and dawn, at the dead littering the ground, dazed and chilled to the bone. All of this felt like a dream, but he knew it wasn't. Everything that happened today was only the beginning. He was a ghost who had fled from death. However slow his retribution was in coming, it had come nonetheless. His sins had ever been a blade hanging over his head. We were finally here to punish him, to claim his life. He pictured TAXIAN-JUN's bloodshot, ferocious eyes. Redemption? TAXIAN-JUN laughed. What redemption? You and I are the same. You can never wash away the blood you're covered in. He saw Shimeng from his past life howling hysterically. Warrior, I'll rip you apart. I'll never forgive you. Not in this life or the next. I forgot about that. He heard the terrifying sound of Song Chitong's scream as she hit the boiling oil. He heard Ye Wangshi's voice as she said there was not a single man to be found in all the cities of Wufeng. He saw the determination and worry in Shu Shuanglin's face as he stepped in front of Ye Wangshi. Ye Fu. The scream drilled into his ear like an owl, leaving a bloody wound. At last, he saw another silhouette among those flickering shadows, that bloody path, that bygone nightmare. Pristine and composed, standing beneath the high-tongue tree. That figure turned, and in the light of the sun and the shade of the clouds, he smiled. Moran forgot how to breathe. It was I who wronged you. I won't blame you, in life or death. Let's see if Chuaning really meant that. Though I would not blame him if he can't hold to that. I want him to, but obviously I still can't blame him if he can't hold to it. Moran crumpled to his knees. He had fought through the night. His clothes were in disarray and bloodied in every corner. Beneath the clear sky and bright moon, he stared ahead for a moment, then curled up like a worm. Huddled on the ground, he shook with sobs. Shizun, Shizun. He howled, choked on the words. It's not like this. It's not me. Please, please, all of you, that's not me. I want to turn back. I want to start over. I'll pay any price, please. I'll tear out my beating heart. Just don't make me die in TAXIAN-JUN's name. I really, really don't want to be him anymore. Please. He thought of Shimeng, then of Shimei. He thought of that stick of Tang Yulu. That I can't pronounce that. There's too many I wasn't using that Shimon had handed him when they were young, haughtily telling him he didn't care if he ate it or not. He thought of Shimon sobbing as he clung to his lapels when they parted, telling him, "Go, you better not be lying to me." Thanks, this hurts. He thought of young Shimei bringing him a steaming bowl of wontons. "Aran," he'd said, "I don't have any parents either, so we'll be each other's family from now on, okay?" He thought of Shimei finding himself on the soul-summoning platform. As those bloody tears fell, he'd said, "You've never actually understood me." He thought of Shizun and Madame Wang, recalled how they died in the past life, and how Shimon's face had twisted into a mask of hate. He thought of Chuaning and couldn't think anymore. "Yes, and didn't Master Haja say you need to leave ASAP?" He dug his fingers into the ground with such force his knuckles split and bled. "What do I do? What do I do?" He wailed in grief and despair like a trapped beast, whipped until its skin tattered and flayed. It was only now he understood. He'd thought of TAXIAN-JUN as someone extraneous to this world, but what about him? Wasn't he the same? Was there any safe harbor for him in all this vast world? Would any of his surviving friends forgive him? He was unnecessary. He curled in on himself, clutched himself, racked with sobs, just as he had all those years ago in the burial grounds beneath and beside his mother's rotting corpse. He'd cried, not knowing where he should go, or where he could call home. Now he was almost more wretched than he had been in his youth. He suddenly didn't know who he was. Emperor TAXIAN-JUN was Shi, 7th generation descendant of the Rufeng clan, a lost and found second young master of Shizun Peak, the irredeemable lord of evil and the kind-hearted grand master of good. It took a single moment for him to shatter, splitting into slivers upon slivers, each so sharp just one would be enough to give him death. Death by 1,000, 10,000 cuts, till no piece of flesh remained that could be called whole. In death, as in life, he was alone. "I'm not TAXIAN-JUN," mumbled Moran. He was so cold. The soul-summoning platform was freezing. Every inch of him shivered. He closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. He sobbed, "I'm not TAXIAN-JUN. What do I do? I don't know what to do anymore. Spare me. Spare me." Who was he pleading with? Chuaning? His own past self? Those countless vengeful ghosts who'd fallen under his blade? Or his own miserable fate? No one would forgive him. No one at all. He buried his face in his hands, and on the desolate mountain top, finally sobbed himself breathless. What can I do? Thanks, I hate it. Yeesh. Okay. We're at the end of page 280, and we're on the hour, so I'm gonna take the final 10-minute break, and then we will be back to finish things off for the night. And I hope you guys have a moment to recover, because I know I need it. Moran, we don't have time for your emotional crisis. Joining me too, that is what I fear. are back. I hope the audio is still okay. And I luckily remembered that I needed to change the camera battery because that would have been a mess. Okay. Yeah, those were fun times. While I was making my tea, I was very much thinking about how relieved I'm gonna be once we're done with this volume, because it feels like Meat Bum is gearing up to torture us, and this volume has been bad already. Like, this has been a very painful volume with a lot of sadness, and I don't know how much more I can take. And I mean, they showed us that they don't mind killing characters, that she kind of lured us into a false sense of security of thinking maybe they would be safe from being massacred because they already faced such terrible fates in their previous life that you would think in a do-over they would be safe-ish, but no, they were not, which makes me really concerned for Shimon and his parents, because I love them so much, so much more than I ever thought I could, that I don't want to be there to see Shimon walk the same tragic fate that Nangong Se did. I just don't. Okay. Well, there's no sense in worrying about it now, and also, as always, please no spoilers. If you do know the answers to these fears of mine, no spoilers. We are on to chapter 236, A Monk's Passing. I wonder what this could be about. Not Master Haja dying, surely. Ascendant. Sorry, let's try that again. We barely saw it and I'm already messing it up. Moran descended Mount Jao. He walked, eyes glazed, in stiff and perfect silence. When he came to a fork in the road, he sank into thought. The battle was over. The morning sun was rising in the east, its light washing away the stains of night. Only dew and the fresh scent of greenery hung between the trees as the dawn applied rosy colours to the sky like a robe. Ooh, that's beautiful. He turned towards these lofty mountain peaks, then back towards the path before him. Going straight ahead would take him to Rainbow Isle, where Shimon and his uncle were waiting for an explanation, an answer. But he couldn't go. He had to head to Dragon Blood Mountain. Master Haja must know far more than Moran had thought. Otherwise, he couldn't have been so calm at the sight of Emperor TAXIAN-JUN. Perhaps that was why Moran felt so lost. He had no idea what awaited him. His mind was a mess, and he had no energy for further ruminations. He only numbly knew he had to go because Shizun was there. Dragon Blood Mountain was close to Wubai Temple. In the past, the monks had gone there to meditate and reach enlightenment, but the mountain was often blanketed in thick fog. Many spoke of getting lost and roaming in circles upon its slopes, and some never returned afterward. Thus, the mountain was gradually abandoned. Riding his sword, Moran travelled an entire day without stopping and landed at the foot of Dragon Blood Mountain, as the sun was sinking below the horizon. He hadn't eaten or drunk the entire day and was too exhausted to continue. As soon as he spotted a clear stream trickling between the cypress trees, he cupped water in his hand and washed his face. What came off first was mud, then dissolving blood. Only then was his face visible, reflecting in the rippling water. It wasn't a heinous one, but as Moran studied his own features, he found them unspeakably repulsive. He struck the water's surface to break the reflection, then closed his eyes. Tormented, he buried his face in his palms, scrubbing at his cheeks. Was there anything that could clearly cut a person's past from their present? A blade that could gouge those putrid memories from his head? Could anyone save him? Tell him, "You're not TAXIAN-JUN, you're only Moran. You're Moran and no one else?" But when he opened his eyes, the waters had calmed. The face in the stream still stared at him in resentment and despair. He had no other choice. He rose and went up the mountain. Halfway up, a fog rose so thick as to be nearly solid. Moran first suspected it was the work of evil spirits, but didn't sense any hint of malevolent energy. It was late now. The forest echoed with the sorrowful cries of the cuckoo. The temperature dropped, and sunlight was fast disappearing. Darkness fell around him. "Master?" His voice was hoarse as he fumbled his way forward. "Master Haja." No one answered. Strangely enough, though he was stumbling, nearly blind, he encountered no obstacles. The path he walked was undisturbingly smooth, as if someone had laid it out in advance of his coming, laying a trap within the mist, perhaps, waiting for him to step in by himself. Was anyone there? The mist receded. The way before him became clear. As the fog melted, the stones and foliage of the mountain appeared distinct before him. He realized he'd walked unwittingly into a clearing. When he turned, the path he'd taken was already hidden in the fog. There was only this patch of clear sky and crisp air. He stepped over dew-laden dried grasses, striding ahead until he sensed a human presence. Moran stared, then started running. "Shizun!" he cried. Chuaning was kneeling before a mountain cave, its entrance half hidden by vines. Master Haja sat in silent meditation before him, his brow furrowed. "Shizun, you—" He fell silent as Chuaning turned. His lashes were dark with tears, his face streaked with their marks. "What's wrong?" exclaimed Moran. Chuaning didn't speak. He'd been holding himself together. For years he'd been lofty and majestic, as if he'd sprung into the world fully grown, a powerful cultivator who'd never been young or weak. But this time, even with all his strength, he only managed 2 words before sobs escaped his lips. "I don't know if I'm ready for Chuaning to break apart. I don't know if I can handle it, and now my eye is being a nuisance as well." Moran rushed to him and knelt by his side, wrapping him in his arms. "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" He bent to caress Chuaning's hair. Chuaning was very cold, but having found him, having clutched him tight, Moran felt his own heart burn with warmth. Every moment of peace together was stolen. Every word he exchanged with Chuaning was a mistaken gift from the heavens. He cherished everything he received. He dared not waste any bit of it. It's okay." Despite his own powerlessness, he pulled Chuaning into his warm and strong embrace. "Everything's fine," he said soothingly. "I'm here. I'm with you. I'm right here." Moran kissed Chuaning's temple. He discovered that, though Chuaning was trying to hide it, the man in his arms was still shaking, still crying. With his fingers twisted tight in Moran's lapels, he resembled very much that long-gone little Shidi from Peach Blossom Springs. No one was born strong. Chuaning, too, had once been young. Moran tensed, comprehension dawning. Holding the trembling Chuaning, kissing his face and caressing his hair, he looked towards Master Haja. The old monk sat on a massive boulder, brows furrowed and lashes cast low. His half-lit gaze was empty. In his hand, slightly outstretched as if an offering, lay a branch of high-tongue blossoms. The receiver must have rejected his gift. The flowers had shriveled, leaving only a few petals clinging to the tips of the wizened twigs. Haja had passed away. Even in his very last moments, the man who was the subject of myth and mystery wore no expression of ease. His face in death was lined with anguish. Even worse, he no longer had the youthful look of a man in his 30s. Death had reduced him to a shriveled husk, and for some reason, a golden insect was eating away at his face. Insect. It's an oath bug, Tronin finally spoke, his voice a ragged rasp. Some who choose to change their appearance make the blood oath with this insect. It can change the host's face, and as recompense, the oath bug will eat the host's entire body when they die. Great. Wonderful. Hearing a slow and quivering attempt to keep his voice steady, Moran held him tighter. Tronin must have been kneeling for a very long time. He was cold all over. From the past life to the present, it was always Tronin who was his lantern, his flame, keeping Moran's darkness at bay, giving him all the warmth he could. But now, as Moran held him, he felt like Tronin was made of ice. He was so cold, it twisted Moran's heart with pain. I'm here. I'm here. He asked me to come to Dragonblood Mountain long ago. Tronin sounded drained, as if all his heat and blood had been replaced with endless agony. He knew I wouldn't talk to him nor let him explain, so he left me a letter. It was sincere, but I was too stubborn. I refused to see him. I doubted his intentions. Moran stroked his cheek. I've never seen Tronin like this, not even in the past life. How could he not be worried? What happened? But Tronin only hollowly said, I doubted him. This man who'd ever been calm and rational had finally fallen apart like the snapped string of a bow. He shook in Moran's arms, trembling uncontrollably, entirely wretched. Tronin was curled up and hunched over. When someone who'd been strained to tautness half their life broke down, the accumulated sorrow was enough to destroy anyone. I would have come earlier. If only I'd listened to him. So much of this wouldn't have happened. Nangungsa wouldn't have died. Shimei wouldn't have been blinded. It wasn't too late. It wasn't too late. Did Master Haja try to warn Chuaning after he was brought back from the dead and Chuaning refused to listen? Guess. Let's see. Shizun. If I'd taken that letter seriously, we wouldn't have ended up like this. It took long minutes for Moran to calm him down, and longer after that for Chuaning's tears to dry up. He stared ahead, glassy-eyed. Moran squeezed his fingers but found he couldn't warm them, just as he couldn't stop him from shaking. Why didn't I trust him? At least just this once. Silence. After the appearance of Emperor TAXIAN-JUN, he'd envisioned countless ways his reunion with Chuaning might go. On the way here, he'd come up with every sort of explanation and entreaty, but he didn't need any of them. He'd never expected that when they met again, it would be like this. He left a memory scroll. Eventually, Chuaning recovered his composure. Moran stroked his face. his freezing cheeks. Before he passed, he'd hoped to hand it to you personally. Moran's hand stalled. A memory scroll? What could be inside? How much did Master Haja know? He felt his own fingertips freezing. His hair stood on end. He was chilled to the bone. But he didn't have the chance. He asked Chuaning. His time was up. Admitting it seemed to prod a terrible wound for him. Grimacing, he fell silent, as though saying any more would break him entirely. He covered his face with his arm, gathering up the coolness, reliability, and steadiness he'd left scattered across the ground. Slowly, he put those fragments back in place. He'd never been accustomed to vulnerability. Chuaning lifted teary phoenix eyes and produced the scroll, placing it in Moran's hands. It contains all the secrets he knew. Moran found his words after a long hesitation. His voice shook imperceptibly. Did he show you its contents too? He did. Why does my frickin' eye have to act up now? Moran shuddered in his core. As he gazed into Chuaning's eyes, a terrifying realization rose in his mind. Chuaning already knew everything. His fingers closed around the jade scroll, but unease flooded him. He clutched Chuaning's fingers, caressing them. Running. He hesitated. If that man on Mount Jao, if everything he said was real, would you hate me? Chuaning's pale face, I'm stressed, sorry, became even more so. His lips were tinged with green. Would you hate me? Moran gripped his hand hard, with an almost brutal force and stubbornness, in complete contrast with the piteous, pleading gaze beneath his soft lashes. Would you? Chuaning shook his head and made no reply. He closed his eyes. Just look at the scroll. The yin energy on Master Haja's scroll was remarkably strong. It was nothing like mortal implements, but bore a stronger resemblance to the feathered tribe's illusion world in Peach Blossom Springs. Moran gazed at Chuaning once more, then unfurled the scroll and brought the glowing jade to his brow. Dragon Blood Mountain vanished around him. In its place was endless darkness, and in that darkness, Haja's voice rang out. It echoed in Moran's ears, filled with regret. This old monk knows his time is short. I strive to convey what little I know to you both. The world faces impending calamity. If I do not do all that I can, this old monk won't be able to bear the shame even in hell. Interesting that that's where he assumes he'll be going. The voice faded and swelled again. The past events contained in the scroll are every one unbelievable. They include this old monk's past misdeeds. Nothing is hidden. I've spent much of my life in sin and ignorance, with a narrow mind and stupid thoughts. In these 200 years of purposeless life, which kind of confirms to me that he knew Shizun somehow. I don't know. Purposeless life. The days when my eyes were clear were paltry and my good deeds pitifully few. All my life I've borne my sins with no hope of atonement, and after death I will sink into the infinite hells with no possibility of reincarnation. But still I dare hope that after the two of you see this, you won't scorn this old monk as no better than a beast. Light appeared before Moran's eyes. Blinking, he saw the ruins of a city, surrounded by shriveled trees and dark-winged crows and birds picking the eyes and innards of corpses. The frickin' town, isn't it? He paused, finding the scene familiar, yet not recalling where he'd seen it. Oh, crap. I think the high-tongue blossom wasn't for Chuaning, it was for Shizun. The one that wasn't taken. A group of soldiers on horseback rode in through the gates, ribbons at their brows and quivers on their backs. One of the young men yanked on the reins and tumbled off the back of his skinny steed, rushing towards one of the corpses at the gate. "Dad!" he screamed. "Dad!" Is Master Haja the guy that betrayed everyone? No way. Let's just keep reading. "Dad!" he screamed. "Dad!" Stunned, Moran felt a chill at the back of his neck. Was this the Feathered Tribe's illusion from Peach Blossom Springs, the war-torn city of ancient Lin'an? Okay, where are we at? Wait. Sorry. Chapter 237, Sacred Tree. Unlike the illusion from Peach Blossom Springs, Moran wasn't physically present in this one. He was only an invisible bystander. He walked up among the soldiers and looked down at the youth sobbing over the corpse. Moran felt a vein throb in his forehead. Cold seemed to seep into his bones, and goosebumps broke out over his skin. Looking upon the scene for the second time, he knew full well what role the youth before him had played in those tragic events in Moran. He had betrayed the governor's son, Shizun, to bring his adoptive father back to life, letting the entire city be slaughtered in the process. "Shaman, he's gone. He's not coming back. Pull yourself together, all right? It's not safe here. We should go." No, I'm not going anywhere. I want Daddy. He died because he left the city to find food for me. It's my fault. Daddy? Moran watched him. Who was he? Haja's father? Or... Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a glimpse of Shaman's left hand. There was a dark mole between his thumb and forefinger, about the size of a grain of rice. Haja had a mole on his hand too, in this exact same spot. Identical in size and shape. Moran went rigid with shock. At the same time, a distant voice sighed in his ears. "I was born in Lin'an and grew up an orphan. A groom in the governor's employ took me in and raised me as his own. When I was 14, the heavenly rift to the ghost realm opened and Lin'an was besieged. Our family ran out of rations and I was starving. Despite the danger, my adoptive father went out to look for food, but by nightfall he hadn't returned. Impossible. Haja was a shaman from 200 years ago? By the time I found him outside the city gates, the ghosts had killed him," Haja continued softly. His stomach had been torn open, and the crows had pecked out his eyes. "I'll never forget that sight as long as I live." Oh. Head buzzing, Moran followed Shaman into the city. Back then, Lin'an had been beset by ghosts and demons after the heavenly rift opened, and the Ghost King had tempted the citizens to give up Shizun. The events were still as tragic and deplorable as the first time Moran had seen them unfold. The night before the calamity, he watched Shaman beg, the townspeople not to dismember his father's body. He implored the head steward to wait until Shizun returned, to see if Shizun might know a way to keep his father's corpse intact. Please, just let me wait a little bit longer, until the gongzer comes back. I'll keep an eye on his body, I promise. If his corpse rises, I won't let it get away. Please, I'm begging you. You won't be able to do a thing to the corpse if it rises. Think of the consequences. No, don't dismember him. I'm begging you, don't dismember him. Shaman protested in the pouring rain, bashing his forehead against the ground until it bled. But in the end, the other residents yanked his father's body out of his arms. Stewart dragged this corpse, which might reanimate at any moment, to the governor's residence, and a group crowded around it. Shaman couldn't see past their backs, but after a while he watched blood seep under the crowd's feet, a wash of pink beneath a torrent of rain. I was selfish back then. I was heartbroken, and I blamed the townspeople for my loss. I betrayed Linan and became a servant of the Ghost King. I sought revenge. As Haja narrated, Moran saw again those terrible scenes. He watched the mother devour her own child's heart, the citizens turn their backs on their hero. He saw Shizun kneeling on the steps of the city god temple, weeping with his back bowed. He watched the mob shove Shizun out of the temple like a flock of dark vultures. For the chance to prolong their own wretched lives, no one hesitated to sacrifice Shizun. This is where I think somehow Chuaning is a reincarnation of Shizun in some way. Like that idea of your past life, how you died in your past life, leaving a scar in the new life or something like that. Would explain why Haja felt so indebted to Chuaning, because he had caused the death of a part of Chuaning in a sense. Watched Shizun carve out his own heart and spiritual core, passing them into the hands of the waiting townspeople. He exhorted them to leave this place behind. Shaman too had witnessed it all. Later on, I went to the ghost realm. Whenever I was alone, I found myself thinking of Chu Gongzi's miserable plight, how he had offered us his heart, how he had always shown us kindness. It ate away at me. More and more, I was unable to escape my own guilt. Haja paused. When he next spoke, his voice was steeped in bitterness. I was a traitor. Moran couldn't say what he felt. Sometimes a split second was all the difference between good and evil. For some, regret came in the instant after the knife fell. But what good was that? They had already passed the point of no return. Not long after, I heard Shizun's souls had entered the underworld. He was a good man. Although his cultivation wasn't sufficient to ascend to immortality, it was enough to ensure his next life would be comfortable and peaceful should he enter the cycle of reincarnation. But he didn't. The tragedy in Lannan had left the souls of his wife and child scattered and lost. He begged Yanluo himself for succor? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, offering up his next 3 lives of good fortune in exchange for their deliverance. But it was nowhere near so straightforward. Okay. In the illusionscape, Moran saw Haja rushing about in the ghost realm. Out of shame and guilt, he carefully avoided Shizun. but he pulled aside all the guards and workers he came across, asking for any information they would give him. What happened to the wife and child? Did Yanluo say anything? Is it possible to piece their souls back together so they can enter the cycle of reincarnation? Can you think of a way, please? I'm begging you to help I'm begging you to help Chu Shun Gongzi. Name any price. I'll discuss it, no matter how high it might be. One of the ghost minions had sneered. I've heard all about your great deeds. Weren't you the one who went over the ninth Ghost King and killed Chushun's entire family? Why the sudden change of heart? Are you afraid Chushun's ghost will seek you out for revenge? Moran walked behind Haja and watched him kneel too many people in entreaty, or to be more accurate, many ghosts. But oftentimes, living people and ghosts were no different in nature. It was just as Chuaning had once said. Reincarnation might change many things about the soul, their personality, interests, or temper, but their fundamental nature remained the same. It didn't take long for the ninth king to hear of Huaizue's interest in Chu Shun's family. The king already bore a deep grudge toward Chu Shun for taking out his eye. After learning that his subordinate Xiaoman was meddling in the Chu family's reincarnation behind his back, the king flew into a rage. He stripped Haja of the token that allowed him to come and go from the ghost realm as he pleased, banishing him to the world of the living. In the same stroke, Haja lost the internal lifespan enjoyed by the ghost realm's underlings. Get your ass back to the mortal realm. Once the yin energy of the underworld dissipates from your body, you'll die and your souls will fall into the infinite hells. They'll be tormented for all eternity there without reincarnation. The ninth Ghost King fixed his good eye on Huaijie. Thinking you could conspire against me with your old master? This is what you get. The underworld's darkness lightened. Moran heard the gentle patter of rain. It was springtime, and new leaves glistened green in the drizzle. He saw Haja, now a monk with a shaven head, making his way through the rain. When I returned to the world of the living, 100 years had passed. Although the Ghost King had taken away my token, I still had yin energy on me. Around midnight, when the yin energy was most concentrated, this was enough to allow me to return to the ghost realm from time to time, but it tapped my strength if I stayed more than a night. And that's how he was able to bring the high tongue blossoms to Chushun in book 3. Crap. What's the time? Okay. In truth, I was still very frightened of death and didn't dare remain in the ghost realm for long. I only went back when I had no other way of gathering information or assistance. Moran watched Haja walk through the bamboo forest alone, tapping a staff against the ground. Those snow-dusted plum blossoms. Let me try it one more time. I don't know why my brain is not working. Through snow-dusted plum blossoms, through rain-laden lotuses, his solitary figure stepped onward. From the flourishing heights of spring to the frosty depths of winter, he wore out pair after pair of hemp-cloth shoes. Haja searched far and wide for any record that might hold clues to restoring the mother and child he had ruined. This was my opportunity to atone for some of my sins, said Haja. Others might have felt nothing at these words. They might have found Haja laughable, but Moran's eyes welled with tears. Atonement. Anyone who'd ever done wrong, who'd ever sought to repent, would yearn for atonement like a fish yearning for water. He and Haja were no exception. Neither of them were a good person. Their hands were laved in blood. With every step they strode upon shattered. With every step they trod upon shattered skulls. How could they atone for what they had done? Using those hands that had committed slaughter, they could guide what remained of their lives onto the righteous path. But would that negate the sins they had committed? If only the mortal world could be divided clearly into right and wrong. If only karmic reward and retribution were just. If only things could be so simple. But he knew it wasn't so. I walked the mortal realm for another century. Haja's voice was slow and sighing. Wherever I went, I sought to relieve what hardship I came across. I knew no matter how many good deeds I performed, I was powerless to change my fate. I looked forward to endless torment after my death. I only wanted to lessen the weight in my heart. If the Gongzi was still in this world, I thought that surely he would partake of the sufferings and worries of others. Snatches of these 100 years flew by in the vision. Moran saw Haja carrying a blind orphan on his back, walking through a mountain forest. He saw Haja toiling in a rice paddy, head bent low. He saw him mending his worn rose beneath the light of the single candle, having given all his money to rebuild a village ravaged by evil spirits. See, this is what I find interesting, because I'm not saying that this man somehow deserves to have all his sins forgiven and not face the consequences of his actions, and yet at the same time, would that not be a profound statement? That, like, if you do see the error of your ways, if you do try hard enough to make up for what you did wrong, there is still hope despite what you might think. Like, if at the end of the series you have Moran going down to the underworld and meeting Haja in a happy space instead of in the endless torments in some way, that would be great. Because we had Moran when he was going down to find Chuaning's missing souls. We had him be measured for where he would, like, what was supposed to happen to him, and there was that pendulum swing of, oh, good, then bad, then good, then bad, which clearly shows that there is some effect on your past misdeeds depending on what you do moving forward. Unless maybe it was more a result of the imprinted souls that Moran had on him affecting what his goodness rating was. That was the only other thing that I could think would have that kind of effect. Oh goodness. True Gongzi never reincarnated. Once, I broke off a branch from a haitang tree in full bloom. I remembered haitang blossoms had been his and his wife's favorite flowers. I summoned all my courage and, in a moment of delusion, went to see him in the ghost realm. The result was a foregone conclusion. He threw me out and told me never to return. Haja stood in one of the ghost realm's alleyways, his figure small and slight, his back already faintly stooped. I didn't dare harass him further, and so that visit was my last. But he kept that high-tongue branch. I thought perhaps he was still fond of the relic of the living realm that had no match in the underworld. I continued to pick high-tongue blossoms, and entrusted them to others to bring to him. I hoped they might soften his hatred towards me, if only the tiniest bit. Later I heard Madame Chu's souls had been repaired with time, but the souls of the child were scattered beyond saving. Even if one scoured the highest heavens and sifted through the yellow springs, there would never again be another little Chu Gongsu. Are you sure about that? After I learned of this, I was overwhelmed with guilt and regret, until one day I came upon something in my travels. A misty river on a moonlit spring night came into view. Haja sat in a small boat surrounded by the winking lanterns of fishing vessels, their scattered light glancing off an object in his hands. Moran stepped up to Haja and took a seat next to him. From here he could see Haja was holding a peculiar-looking piece of wood. Any ordinary tree would have rough bark and fine whorls. This had neither. It was no wider than a man's palm, covered in smooth, delicate bark that gleamed subtly. Even in the illusion, Moran seemed to catch the light fragrance emitting from it. The Flame Emperor's sacred tree. Okay. Moran drew in a breath, eyes flying wide as he stared at the luminous object in Haja's hands. This was from the Flame Emperor's sacred tree. According to legend, this tree grew in the furthest reaches of the East Sea, which no human could reach. After 2 lifetimes traveling through every corner of the jungle, of course Moran had heard of the Flame Emperor's sacred tree. It was said this tree could bring the dead back to life and produce artifacts mightier than any ordinary holy weapon. Its influence could even help commoners ascend, allowing them to bypass the sufferings of reincarnation to walk among immortals. Haja evidently knew these tales as well. The sacred tree possesses its own spirit, he explained softly. If one refined its wood into their own spiritual core, they would soon reach ascendance. If so, I would never have to face the torments of hell. And you chose not to do that, I'm assuming. Moran suddenly recalled a rumor he'd heard about Haja, that he had rejected the summons of the heavens and chosen to remain in the mortal realm. Could it be that he had failed in his efforts to refine the Flame Emperor's sacred tree? Well, I think he just gave it away to someone. Maybe a little Chuzongshi that turned out to be Chuaning. I had a very strong urge to put this piece of sacred tree towards my own ends. For a period of time, I thought it had come into my possession by the grace of heavens as a sign I wasn't meant to suffer in the underworld. On the boat, Haja ran his fingers over the wood. Yearning flashed through his eyes, followed in turns by indecision. The voice echoing in Moran's ears, too, was racked with turmoil. However, there was something else I had once read in an ancient text. The Flame Emperor's sacred tree had the same properties as Nuwa clay. This piece of wood could be used to create a living person. Running. Oh, goodness. And we are gonna end it here, so let's just quickly see. We're at page 297. which means that we still have 80 pages left. I am definitely not able to do 80 pages in one sitting, so I think we are gonna have, instead of the usual one live stream next week, I'm gonna be having two 2-hour ones instead, like we used to do, and I think with that we should be able to get through 40 pages and then another 40 pages, and we can always just go a little bit over time if necessary. But yeah, that is very interesting, and the idea that Chuaning didn't happen to look like Shizun because he's somehow a reincarnation or a, you know, distant relative who just, the gene pool was magic and gave him a similar face. The idea that Haja was so trapped in his guilt towards Shizun that all he could do was shape someone into an almost replica of the man that he'd wronged. Like, I don't want to know what's going through Chuaning's head right now. That's assuming that all of my assumptions are correct and that Chuaning has put all the pieces together. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I can't believe we're finishing this next week. But I am very happy that we'll be taking a bit of a breather between this and the next volume to go back to Beloved Pet Fish. And then I think we'll be doing volume 3 of Beloved Pet Fish after this. So Modu is still a ways away, but it is coming, I promise. We will definitely get back to it at some point. And I do want to finish it before the end of the year as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you so much for your patience with me and my eye and everything. And I will see you guys next week. Zedin.